Well, I'm back. Thanks for the money for the YouTube. That was really nice of you. Hey, what an awesome truth you heard this morning, that Jesus is for his friends. And tonight we're going to explore this idea that he is for his foes, his enemy. And I don't know how many of you in the room might have a foe. If that person is in the room, don't look at them right now. Don't make eye contact. That'll be super awkward. Maybe some of you have a foe that you hurt. They're your enemy because you hurt them. Or maybe they hurt you, right? Or maybe you live with your foe. Maybe your parents right now are your enemy. We won't talk about that. Listen. Or maybe your foe is on a sports team that you just don't really care too much about. Or maybe you're like me and your foe is a four-legged rodent. I will always believe that mice are my enemy. No. Let me tell you this story. How many of you, and we're going to use our hands and our mouths to answer this, how many of you have ever had a lemonade stand at your house? When I was in 4th grade, I loved, every summer, I made at least like $23, enough to pay the octopus. I would always do a lemonade stand, and one day I was walking, I was going to do my lemonade stand, I was going to sell my awesome lemonade to my neighbors, scam them out of their hard-earned money, and I was walking through my yard, and I saw 3 little pink things moving in the grass. And I was like, what is this? And I got really close, and I could see that they were 3 baby little mice. And I thought, oh, just like you. I thought, are you orphaned? And they were like, meh. And I was like, what happened to your mom? Like, I really don't like mice, so I just kind of kicked them under the porch. Wait. Okay. Some of you, I heard some boos and some cheers, mixed emotions. Just wait, the story's not over. Shh. It's hot in Oklahoma. I was getting them some shade. So I walked away and I start setting up my lemonade stand, and I'm like, I feel so bad, like they're orphans and I should go back. So I went back and I was like, do you want me to like help you? And so I go inside and I get a bowl and I'm like, you know what? I hate mice, but today I'm gonna save them. And so I got my mom's favorite bowl. Oops, sorry, Mom. And I got these like little spatula thing, and I like, they were so gross. They were like pink and little, and I put them in this bowl, and then I put some grass in the bowl because I was like, they need to kind of feel like they're like at home. And then I was like, I bet you're hungry. So I took them inside, and I thought mice eat cheese. So I got some like shredded cheese, and I sprinkled it on the mice, and then I was like, wait, these are baby mice, Mel. They don't eat cheese yet. They need milk. So then I got the milk, just a little. No, I didn't drown them. I just got a little bit. And I poured the milk in the bowl, and my cat was looking at that bowl like, yes, I'll have one of those, thank you. So I was like, no. So then I was like, oh my gosh, I know my mom. Like at this point in my life, in my 4th grade career, my mom was like, you're not bringing any more animals in the house. We had an experience the week before. I knew the rules. So I was like, I got to get rid of you. I'm going to try to sell you today at my lemonade stand. So I went out, I put my mice under, and I waited. I waited for the perfect person. And I saw this sweet little old lady pull up, and she got out, and she had on like this zebra t-shirt, and I was like, this lady loves animals, she's the one. And I was like, hello, how are you today? Would you like some lemonade? And she was like, I would love some lemonade. And she purchased it, and I said, would you like anything else to go with your lemonade? And she said, like what? And I said, well, I'm glad you asked. You can buy 1 baby mouse for $1 or all 3 for $10. That's how you do it. I was a genius. I was a baby genius. Listen, long story medium, nobody bought my babies that day. So I was like, okay, I'm going to take you inside and we're going to be quiet because if Paula hears you, she's going to go crazy. So I went in and I made a little area in my closet and I cleaned it out and I put a little lamp in there and I played some music for them. And I was like, I'm going to save these orphans' lives. I'm going to be just like Jesus. I'm going to be their savior. I talked to them. When I went to bed, I was like, I love you. And I named them. And I don't remember, but it was probably really awesome names. And I woke up the next morning and I was like, I'm all in. I'm going to be the mother of 3 baby mice orphans. I love you. I'm going to save you. And they were dead. It was so sad. It was such a sad story. It was such a sad story, but listen, you know what I learned from this story is that really quickly when your enemies, your foe, or that thing you just really don't like, when it needs help, it changes things. What do we do when our foe is desperate or our foe needs a friend or our foe needs saved? What do we do with that? It's easy to ignore our foes. But what about when our foe sits right next to us? What do we do with that? So today we're going to look in John chapter 4. And you saw the awesome story of Jesus and the woman at the well. That story is going to answer those questions for us. So in John 4, we find a really tired and hungry Jesus, as you saw in the screen in the fun video that you played. And he's sitting at this well. And along comes this woman who is his foe. And I want to explain to you why she was his foe. This is really important for you to understand that there were 3 really good reasons why Jesus should have ignored her. He shouldn't have sat next to her. He shouldn't have had anything to do with her. The first one is that the Jewish tradition told Jesus that as a rabbi, that he did not have to speak to a woman, that she wasn't allowed to be in his presence, to learn from him, or for him to even have to talk to her. Have you ever felt judged? This woman in this moment should have felt really judged by Jesus, but instead, he talked to her, he saw her. And the second thing is that she was a Samaritan, as you learned, and he was a Jew, and they were enemies. They were like cat and mouse, or I don't know what other things, like a ketchup and a banana, Tom and Jerry, left Twix, right Twix. They should have acted like the other person did not exist. Jesus should have acted like he did not even see her in this moment. Have you ever felt like you were not good enough? That's the way she should have felt in this moment. But Jesus sat with her, and he made her feel seen. And he got to know her, and he shared this moment with her. And then the third thing that made this woman his foe was her bad reputation. I'm sure none of you in the room own one of these, but she had one, and we learn from this story that she has a bad reputation by this clue. The story tells us that she came to the well around noon. This is the hottest point of the day. You know this. But all of the women, they had sort of this little club, this really cool gang that would go in the mornings, and they would take their water jars and they would fill it up with water, or they would do it late in the evening so that it wasn't so hot that the water evaporated or that it was harder on them. And they would go in the morning. And because she was here at noon, said that she was not a part of that crowd. Have you ever felt left out before? Like you weren't a part? That's the way she was feeling when she arrived at this well. But Jesus interrupted her loneliness in this moment when he sat with her and he talked with her. So here we have tradition and culture and a bad reputation saying, this is your foe, and then we see how Jesus accepts her in this moment. And they begin to have this discussion where she realizes this is the Messiah. This is the one I have been hearing about all of my life. And I want to show you what she did. And I'm going to read this part to you. And this is in verse 27 or verse 28. She's had this moment. Jesus has proven to her, you're not my foe. And you are, but I'm still for you. And watch what she does. This is really incredible. In verse 28, it says, then leaving her water jar, say leaving. Okay, let's try that again. Then leaving, say leaving. Okay, I was making sure you're with me. Leaving her water jar, the woman went back to the town and said to the people, come see a man who told me everything I ever did. Could this be the Messiah? Say Messiah. Making sure you're awake. They came out of the town and they made their way toward him. She left her water jar. This isn't a Nalgene that she picked up on a vacation. This was a really important part of her every single day life. It was a part of her livelihood. She used this water jar to get water for her house that supplied not just drink, but allowed her to cook. It allowed her to clean. She cleaned herself with it. Without it, she would not have survived. And we see this woman leave her water jar behind. She left something very valuable and very important behind for this reason. So I'm going to keep reading for you. This one, we skip ahead. This is in verse 39. And it says, many of the Samaritans from the town believed. Say believed. Believed in him because of the woman's testimony. She said, he told me everything I ever did. She left this important, valuable item behind to go do what Jesus told her to do. And that is what Jesus is calling us to today. Like, once we understand this truth, that Jesus is for his foes, then we have to be for them as well. So I made this other little slide for you. I didn't actually make it. The Awesome Tech team made it. And what we're going to do is we're going to read this, and in that blank, you're actually going to put your name in that blank. So, like, I'll say, many of the Samaritans from the town believed in him because of Mel's testimony. But in that part, you'll put your name. Like, my name's Mel. What's your name? Awesome. That's what you're going to say right in that blank. So we're all going to read it, and then you're going to say your name, and then we're going to zip it because I have one more funny story and important truths to tell you, okay? All right, so read with me. 1, 2, 3. Many of the Samaritans from that town believed in him because of Mel's testimony. Listen, you have to understand this today. Listen, you have to understand that once you get this here at camp, that Jesus is for all and forever, all of these truths, that Jesus is for his friends and for his foes, that's a truth about you. If you are a Christian and you're following Jesus, then you have to be for your foes as well. And the question we have to ask is, are we willing to set something down to go do what Jesus told us to do? Or are we holding on to something that we shouldn't? I want to tell you a story about a time that I held on to something and it got me in trouble. We're just spending all day with fourth grade Mel. She was really awesome, if you remember, selling lemonade and mice. Well, on my birthday, my parents took me to this really fancy establishment. It was named after its owner. I don't know if you have them here in California. They're called Chuck E. Cheese. Okay. I was making sure. I should have done my research. If you don't know what Chuck E. Cheese is, it's like Main Event or Dave & Buster's or I don't know. So it was this awesome arcade, and I went on my birthday, and I played all these games, and I got all of these tickets, and I went to the ticket counter, and right away, like, my eyes locked on my new best friend. I saw, you guys, I still remember this moment like it was yesterday, and it was definitely not yesterday. If you remember, I'm much older. I saw a giant Sour Patch Kid, and I was like, we're going to be best friends. I'm going to name you Brian. Done. Sold. And I was like, I want him. Boom. Slammed all my things on the counter, and she's like, cool, he's 1,000 tickets. And I'm like, okay, let's go. And she's like, you have 320 tickets. And because I was in fourth grade, and that was really hard, I just like started crying. I was like, no, I'll be right back. And I like ran to my mom, and I was like, I need all your money. Like, sell your car. I have to get him. Like, please. I know you've already spent like $700 on this, but like, and she's like, no, we'll come back next year. Save your tickets. And I'm like, what? And she literally like drags me out of Chuck E. Cheese. Mom of the year. She was a great mom. That's what she should have done now. Yeah, thanks, Paula. At this point, she had found out about the mice, so she was like angry. So I go home and I'm like, I left my best friend Brian in that cold, dark place. And remember, I'm all about saving people, and I'm like, I'll be back for you. And for a whole year, I saved my money, and I saved those tickets in the top drawer of my dresser. And it was my birthday again. I was like, all I want to do is go back to that fancy establishment named after its owner, Chuck E. Cheese. And my mom was like, okay, you realize that, and she refused to call him Brian. She was like, you realize it's not still going to be there. And I was like, oh, it will. And we pulled into the parking lot, and I ran inside, and I ran up to the counter. Brian was a different color. He was green before, and now he's blue, but I was okay with that. And I was like, you're still here. Okay, so I went and played only the ticket games. You know when you find one that you're good at, and you're just like, I'm going to play this, I'm going to play this. And I got 1,130 tickets. Let's go. Yes. Yes. I went up to that counter, and I was like, I'm here for my best friend, Brian. And the guy was like, what? And I was like, I'll take the giant Sour Patch Kid. Okay, so I was like, we can go now. I am so happy. Tore open, took him out, ripped his left arm off, and just started eating it. I was like, yes, I waited a whole year for this. And my mom was like, okay, here's the deal. You can't eat him in the car. He's sticky, and that weird sugary stuff comes everywhere. And I'm like, okay. So I put him in, and the whole way home, I was just like, I can't wait to get home. We're going to do all these things, and you're going to be my best friend. I was in 4th grade, guys. Okay, chill. I didn't have a lot of friends. That was nice of you. So we get home, and I'm like, okay, and I'm playing with him, and my mom's like, it's time for bed. And I'm like, cool. Brian and I are going to bed. And so I march to the room, and she's like, yeah, no, you're not, that's weird. No, that's gross. He's going to get everywhere. And she took him, and she put him back in the box, and she put it on top of the fridge. I know. And I was like, okay, that's fine. I'm going to go to bed. And I laid there, and I waited. I was like, I think it's like on Christmas when you're like, I think that everyone's asleep. And then I really quietly, when you're sneaking, right? You got to walk and I went to the kitchen, and I scooted a chair up to the counter, and I climbed up, and I got Brian off the top of the fridge, and I was like, it's going to be okay. And I took him out, and I just took one little bite, and I went, and I was like, this is awesome. He's my best friend. He's basically a stuffed animal that tastes really awesome. And I fell asleep. And the next morning, I woke up. This is really funny, guys. I'm having flashbacks. The next morning, I woke up, and I was like, And Brian was stuck to my face, and all of my hair was all in him, and I'm like, Brian, And of course, moms are so good at timing, right? My mom opened the door, and she's like, good morning, sweetheart. And she just ripped Brian off of my face. I'm like, because I had he was sticky, because I would I was just taking little nibbles off him for the night. I'm like, and my mom stomped to the kitchen, boom, boom, threw Brian right in the trash can. Where? I know. Hey, listen. Jesus is for his foes. I forgave my mom for this. I forgave her. So she's like, now I have to wash your sheets. And she stomps off to my bedroom, and I go to the trash can. And I open the lid, and I'm like, hey, B. I wish I was making this up. I was so weird. Oh my gosh, I'll never see you all again. That's why I'm telling you this. And I reached into the trash can, and I was like, hey, buddy. And he looked horrible at this point. I'd eaten an arm and half of his face. And I was like, boom. I took one last bite, and I threw him away. But I loved him, and I wanted to keep him. And listen, that's a goofy story and a gross story. But we do that when there's things that we value or that we worked really hard for, we just want to keep them and we want to hold on to them. And it gets us in trouble. It can get us in trouble because what we've learned this week about Jesus being for all and forever is that it's also our jobs to go do kingdom work like you're seeing on these videos. And we can't do kingdom work when our hands are full. And the thing is that we hold on to things that aren't Jesus. And what I can tell you is if what you're holding on to isn't Jesus, that eventually it will fail you. So we have to get to a place where we're able to set things down. And for some of you, they're real things. They're real hurtful things. Like you need to forgive somebody, like your mom for throwing away your giant Sour Patch Kid. Or like you need to forgive somebody that really hurt you. Or you need to quit doing that thing that you're doing. Or you have this hang up. Or for some of you, it's good things. It's just like sports or that hobby or like obviously Fortnite that you're just like hanging on to so tight. And what you need to know is that there has been a place created for you today. Listen, and it's a place for you to set that down because we have to set some things down so we can pick Jesus up. Like we have to set things down so that we have the space to believe that Jesus is for his foes. And when he's for his foes, then he's for us. But what this also does is it comes with a responsibility. That if Jesus will sit with the woman at the well and he will sit with me and he will sit with you, that also means that he will sit with your foes. And we have to be a people, you have to be a young generation that is willing to prove to everyone, even your foes, that Jesus is for them. And if you are a Christian and you follow Jesus, then people should be able to follow you and find Jesus. Do you get that? If you're calling yourself a Christ follower, then people should be able to follow you and they should be able to find him. They shouldn't have to be looking past you for somebody who is for them because Jesus is for you and you believe that. So we have to be a people that believes that Jesus is for his foes, but then we have to go believe in them too. And that's really, really hard. I get that. I know that that is hard. Your leaders and your pastors, they know that's hard too, and that's why they're here for you this week. There was 100 other things they could have been doing, sleeping on much more comfortable beds, but they are here for you because they know that this is hard, because they are for you. But you can't go do those things when you're holding on to that junk that you shouldn't be holding on to. So what we're going to do tonight is I want to ask you that question, like, what is it that you're holding on to? What is it that you need to sit down so that you have the arms to pick Jesus up and go show the world that Jesus is for friends and foes and all the people in between?